Kevin, are you there?
I am here. Well, I'm just going to open the can of worms now, and let's talk about Cody. Um, I just I get I get what he's trying to do with his character. I guess he's trying to pay tribute to his dad. Um, it's in Jacksonville, which is more of a conservative area, but in 2021, that was one of the most awkward promo. I think it was the most awkward promo in AEW history.
What did you think, Kate, when you saw it?
I was physically cringing, and it stands out because I find that there are a lot of people in AEW who are very strong as promos, and I think that Cody has been one of them. So for him to cut a promo like that, where even he couldn't, well, I was going to say couldn't sell it, but it's his words, obviously. I get it was a throwback to what his dad, the character that his dad played, but his dad played that character at a very, very different time, and I think that I know Brandy tweeted that she loved what he said, and she couldn't wait to be able to show it to their daughter. But I think it's kind of galling to have a white guy standing on television in 2021 and talking about like, oh, well, back before the civil rights movement, you didn't get mixed race couples or this kind of thing, this kind of thing wouldn't have happened. And now I'm about to have a daughter with my African-American wife. And it's like, okay, you just came really close to sort of implying that, racism was fixed. It's like, look, this is like, and I think I'm sure he didn't mean to say that, but it really does. A lot of people who try to downplay issues of racism in the United States sort of go back to this, like, well, yeah, but we had the civil rights movement and then things were okay. And that's, so I thought that was tone deaf. But the other thing is just this whole, sorry, go right ahead.
Well, just on that note, because certainly to me, like that was probably the most controversial aspect of the promo, but let's just remind ourselves the context in which he's trying to deliver that statement to. It's in the midst of a feud that I certainly don't think, warranted treading into that sort of territory. I mean, we're talking about Anthony Ogogo, who has, had a few anti-American lines, draped a flag over you. And I don't think necessarily warranted a response about like the civil rights movement, nor talking about, having a mixed race baby. When I'll tell you what the most awkward thing is that Anthony Ogogo himself, I believe, is a mixed race person. So
yes, exactly.
That's all super, super weird.
I don't think, Cody, the like very, very white, bright, like the whitest guy on the roster, just in terms of appearance. I don't think he should be throwing down lines about this when he's facing a person of color. And yes, so that struck me as awkward. But just in general, I think that again, in this time, in the 1980s, I think it was very different when his dad was doing it. But right now, I think that when you're calling on this appeal to nationalism and jingoism, and that there are a lot of things, and the United States maybe more so than many other countries, there's a lot of bad stuff associated with nationalism. And I think that outside of, I guess, things like the Olympics or the World Cup, I don't really want to hear people like beating their chests about the greatness of their country, because that has led to some pretty terrible things in the last 30 to 40 years. And it's just not this idea that the experience of the being American is somehow the same to everyone, or that experience is open to everyone, is demonstrably false. And that it is good to sort of feel that invested in this sort of arbitrary construct of I'm getting way too like, philosophical on this, I guess, but I didn't like Cody's speech at all. It hit a lot of hot points for me.
Do you think AEW at all like will address this or try to fix it in any way in the match or in the program coming out of it? Like, how does this alter the trajectory of where they were planning to go with this feud?
I don't know if it does.
Yeah.
I don't know if it does. I think I'm just was personally just sitting here thinking maybe there's three of us that are living right here and having this conversation, and maybe someone in America can disagree with me, but maybe we as Canadians feel cringeworthy, but maybe there's a bunch of people in Jacksonville, I think, that finds this super patriotic and they won't change it. There's like that stubborn faction of America that it's going to take this with pride and just say this is a wrestling promo and deal with it.
With the Cody promo, I'll just say this, like, and this is just my theory that, a lot of, like, I feel like a lot of wrestlers now, I feel like they kind of try to work even the internet crowd, even because, again, everything goes viral. Everything is fucking chaotic with that kind of stuff. And with the accumulative stuff that Cody's has with his wife, where she said, I'm the first Black woman to marry into the Rhodes family. And people were really kind of like, why would you kind of have to say that? And I feel with this promo, like, they know what they're doing. And I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing. But the thing is, like, in a week where, like, U.S.'s role has been discussed, with overseas stuff, I don't think it was really good, especially this last year, even with what's going on. And I really hate jingoistic storylines, unless, like, this is like a slow burn for, like, an added element of Cody eventually turning heel, because he's a smart guy. He I don't know why he plays this tone deaf character so much all the time, even with going viral with AOC going, I never understood a Black person's experience before marrying into Bright, like this stuff like that kind of makes you look grown, and it feels like he's kind of doing performative stuff, and it kind of like, you accuse Triple H and Stephanie of doing that kind of stuff, and it's like you're doing the mini version of that. That's just my take on it, and I'll leave you guys with that. I'll look forward to joining you guys for WrestleMania Backlash.
Awesome, thank you, Hansi. I really do question. I first of all, let me say, I think AEW is very self-aware. They know, they read all the tweets, they know how they're being perceived, and so ultimately, I think this does end with Cody turning heel. But I can't believe that was the intent at this point in time, especially when they have that reality show coming out. What do you think, Kate?
I think that I have thought several times that Cody was about to turn heel, because I thought that his promos or just the way that he acted was sort of on the verge, that it was sort of slipping into heelish behavior. So I'm almost a little shy to say that I think that Cody is going to turn heel, because I've been wrong a few times. I think that I believe it was headed more in that direction if you didn't have QT and the Factory and Anti-Go-Go playing such obvious heels. I think the funny thing is, I think that there was a way that you almost could have addressed this sort of thing, almost like maybe like the idea of Americans fighting with the British is actually something that you could do in an inoffensive way that would bring in a certain amount of nationalism. But the way that he did it was not not good. And he certainly is, AEW and Cody in particular, they're very aware of the effect that they have online. And I don't believe that he went into that thinking, well, this will get like a universally positive reaction. I just think that from what I saw, it wasn't heel heat, it was go away heat. It was the kind of reaction where people were cringing to get, don't do that. It's uncomfortable, and not so much like, oh, you bastard, how could you say that? Which is, again, he's the baby face in this. You're not supposed to like
When the dust settles on all this, and I don't necessarily mean like in the next month, but like years later, like somebody I hope will bring this promo up to Cody, and I hope he by that point he would have the clarity to be able to say that was a mistake, and I understand why. And I hope he goes on to talk about it because clearly it was, judging by this reaction. Not for a second do I think he intended for us to have this conversation about like him bringing up his, like what he did. An interesting thought is, now I do feel like our audience might be a bit more, might be a bit different from like the crowd at Daly's place. But do you think, Kate, that the reaction live with the full audience will be pro Agogo?
They started getting a USA chant going. Like they had a bit of a crowd there on Wednesday, and they definitely had the USA chant going. I think it's a bit of a risk because the thing about Agogo is he's come off as actually pretty cool. Like, yes, he's a heel, but he's the snappy dresser. He's got that punch from hell. He looks big and tough. He's done not since he's been playing more of a character, but he's done commentary work on Dark, and he can be pretty engaging. And so I think that there is now. People won't have a lot of time to sort of get to know him beforehand. So maybe that might be benefit for Cody. But I do think there's the risk that it's going to backfire because I think that Agogo there are going to be a lot of fans who think when they look at him and Cody think, I'd rather be more like this guy, like who's sort of an asshole, but kind of in a devilish, entertaining way. The other thing I say too, now again, this is going online, and I know that people who talk online tend to skew away from a lot of traditional wrestling demographics. I didn't see anyone saying that they really liked this. I saw some people saying they were fine with it, and I saw people saying it made them cringe, and I saw some people saying they really hated it and thought it was harmful. I don't know who, if anyone, this hit with, but I haven't seen any evidence that it helped Cody